Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining our CKAN Monthly Live number 24. Today we have the pleasure of featuring Joel Natividad from that here. I think we all know Joe very well, and we love Joe a lot. He's a long-time CKAN contributor, very active. You've seen him present at CKAN Monthly Live a couple of times. Last year, for example, he showcased. So today, as you can see, he'll talk about the DataPusher Plus. He'll tell us about the Automagical metadata capabilities that they've recently developed. Last year, during the January, I think, CKAN Monthly Live, he showcased how DataPusher Plus actually builds upon the DataPusher strengths and integrates the speed of Xloader. And now he'll just tell us a bit more how they advanced even further. It will be really exciting, and I'm sure you'll all enjoy. The agenda for today is we have some welcome and introduction. This is me right now talking. I'll be quick, really. After that, we're going to have Joe's presentation, and we can have some discussion, Q&A session. After that, we can have community announcements and sharing part. Okay. Here, by the way, we can spend some time discussing our recent CKAN Demo Days initiative that you must have all heard of. If not, that's not good. And you'll hear now. And then last part, of course, is closing. I already dropped a link to the meeting notes document, but I'll redrop it after my introduction. So this is our single source of truth document. You can, there are many details there that you can have a look at. At the beginning, there is a special section where you can put your name, affiliation, what brings you to CKAN. As you know, we are here to learn more, but also to connect. So feel free to drop your name there. You can also find all sorts of links. So please feel free to open the document and have a look at it. You can also add some suggestions for topics. You can add things to the agenda. Basically, this is your cheat sheet, let's say. Okay, so there are two ways to ask a question. You can either raise your hand and go ahead, or better, no, sorry, it's not better to drop your question in the chat. You can drop your question in the chat and I'll voice it for you, but the best thing is to wait for the Q&A session. Yeah, and basically to feel free to ask questions. We are here to learn and share. So questions are much appreciated. As you know, we have a CKAN monthly newsletter. You can subscribe on LinkedIn in the link that you see on screen. It's also available in the meeting notes document, and also on our website. And this is the link there. You can see subscribe for our newsletter. If you click on it, you'll go to the website and you'll be able to subscribe so that you receive it in your inbox. Okay, so 1 minute to reiterate that we've extended our CKAN Demo Days initiative. I'm not going to go into details because you can, on the blog, you can read very detailed information, what the initiative is about, etc., etc. The idea is that we are gathering all kinds of stories so that we can showcase the plentiful of ways that CKAN helps and fosters innovation and tasks and tackles global issues. So we are gathering all kinds of stories. Doesn't matter if you are directly involved in a project, or you manage a project, or you simply adore some project, or anything basically related to CKAN and open data is welcome. Now, there is a quick share guide. I will not focus too much into that now because I don't want to steal from Joe's time. But I'll share the presentation again in the chat and in the meeting notes document, and you can see how you can actually participate. It's very simple. You just tag us on social media, or if you want to, or just send an email to Stephen, to myself, or Kate, and then basically that's it. We'll add, if you're sending a video, for example, we'll add it to a special CKAN Demo Days playlist, and then on social media, we'll reshare your content so you can reach broader audience. Okay. Is there something that I've missed? Yeah, the meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. And with all said, I think it's time for me to close my mouth and welcome Joel. Joel, please let me know if you're able to share your screen. I'll stop sharing right now.
Yep, I'm sharing mine.
Let's stop. Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. So yeah, I'll go through this. We have a lot of information to go through. As Joanna said, this is like an improvement over what we did with DataPusher Plus. That's why there's an additional plus, cost plus. And as to why we and how we got here, I invite you, I don't want to dwell on it too much, that we did post a blog post series about the thinking behind why we built DataPusher Plus. And one of our contributions during Open Data Day last 2 weeks ago was, this whole idea of, how do we increase the speed of insight? And let me start with, this what CKAN stands for, which is a Comprehensive Knowledge Archive Network. It's comprehensive, so that means it needs to be a lot of data, big data, and metadata about a certain location. That's the way we look at it. It's knowledge, it's actionable information, or what Rufus would often like to point out is small data, right? Something that people can understand and grok and take an action on. Largely distilled from all that data and metadata. It's an archive, so you have longitudinal data. If we pronounce that 10 times over. The idea here is so you can see trends and compute key performance indicators over time. So you want to have an archive about certain topics, right? And lastly, you want it to be a network so you can do benchmarking and comparisons across jurisdictions and across locations. So when we found the CKAN project, this is how we interpreted it and how we look at it through the lens of what we want to do, our mission. So we've been on this mission for a while. We started in 2011, Sammy and I, when we built a semantic data dictionary of New York City's open data. We won a municipal open data challenge then by Mayor Bloomberg with NYC facets. So basically, we extracted a lot of metadata, something that we're doing right now again with DataPusher Plus, inferring a lot of metadata. So the data steward doesn't have to key it in manually. And with that, we then started building a semantic encyclopedia called NYCpedia. That's why the company, our first startup, Sammy and I, is Ontodia. It's ontology of encyclopedia. That's why we came up with the name Ontodia. And we ended up getting a lot of metadata and cleaning and normalizing a lot of the raw data we got from New York City. And we needed a place to put all that data. And that's how we got involved with CKAN in 2012. And we continued building that knowledge archive network. around 2015 at the Code for America Summit, we introduced civic dashboards, where we attempted to do that benchmarking across the whole US, across all 3,000 counties, across all 20,000 municipalities, using an ISO standard for comparing cities, city indicators. So that was the culmination of our journey, and then our company got acquired by OpenGov in 2016. But since then, Sammy and I, we got a band back together, and we've been doing CKAN for almost 13 years now, and we've deployed, between Sammy and myself, and between the three companies, more than 100 portals of all shapes and sizes, and mostly in the public sector, but some implementations in the private sector. And we always install the CKAN Datastore, because we saw, we just don't want to build a metadata catalog. We always wanted to strive towards having the comprehensive knowledge archive. But we always dealt with these three data wrangling devils, that we wrote about in the blog post series. We always had to fight, because we were not just cataloging the data sets and capturing the metadata entered by the data stewards. We actually wanted the data itself to be available in CKAN. So we were pumping it. We need to massage the data, and we need to pump it into the data store. And this was always the #1 source of problems that we always had with Sammy and when we work on CKAN installations. Because primarily data quality and data interoperability, or basically the lack of it, right, is because a lot of this data is what some people call data exhaust, right? So this data is basically produced for specific application. When they spec out that application, they had a certain data model in mind, but of course things change, the technology changes, the business changes, the legal landscape changes, and they affect the data model. And interoperability, for the most part, is always secondary. That's not the primary goal of that application. So that boils down into, we need to always have that data pipeline to feed the data, which causes a lot of friction for data stewards and data publishers, right? Because, okay, if I need to publish this data, it has a lot of personally identifiable information on it. I need to clean it up first. I need to have it approved. I need to redact it. So there's this whole secondary list of activities and tasks that you need to do, especially in the open data domain, that you need to do to publish data, which causes a lot of friction. And we wanted to make sure, how do we reduce or eliminate that friction altogether? And then even when you get that data massage in a way so you can share it with the public, then you have to pump it into the CKAN Datastore. And we started with the original DataPusher at the time, early 2010s. It was, great. It was, data volumes were not that high, but this is not derision, but I sometimes call it a blob store, because everything basically was a big blob. You can't really do queries on it. Basically, you just have the data set there so you can download it. And there was a DataPusher, one component it had was what I call the unfortunately named messy tables. And what it does is it tries to guess the schema of your data. So it can create the right data type, so you can do SQL queries on it. But as we all know, data quality is suspect, right? So oftentimes when we wrangle the data for publication, we pull it into Excel, and then we manually curate and prepare the data. And more often than not, that introduces errors. So if you have a 1,000,000-row file, and then at the last row you mistype what's supposed to be a number column, you put in 0 spelled out instead of numbers, and messy tables guess, oh, this is a number column, and then it saw something that was not a number. It was the word 0, and then it just blows up, right? And then also the way it was feeding the data was through REST API, so it was really kind of slow because of all the overhead of serializing to JSON, deserializing, pumping it to SP, waiting for the response. And it was batch process, limited error handling, and there was no actionable feedback. So after a lot of hair pulling, eventually, one good benefit of being acquired by OpenGov was we had access to some additional resources, and with the support of OpenGov, we commissioned Xloader in 2016. David Reed helped build that up based on some of the things that we wanted to do. So one of the main great things about Xloader, it's 10 times faster, and it's fault tolerant, right? And it's fault tolerant because it tries not to guess the schema. It doesn't try to get too fancy. So that speed and reliability came at the expense of the ability to do very performant queries. So in 2020, during the pandemic, Sammy and I got together and started that here again. We were no longer at OpenGov, and we were having a consulting gig with this hedge fund, and they wanted us to build a data catalog and extract all the metadata, infer it every day from all their data assets. And they had an expansive catalog. And we built it using the usual suspects, Python, NumPy, Pandas, and it was just too slow. So we found a tool called XSV, and we created a fork out of it called, we now call it QSV. And on top of that, we built DataPusher Plus, which we built primarily using one of our clients' use cases, Texas. And they wanted, they had some ambitious goals about having a data ingestion workflow, and we found that for us to achieve those goals, we need to do a lot of inferencing of the metadata. So last year we iterated on that, we improved on it, and we also started building a fourth generation solution. And I'll get down to what that fourth generation solution is. Hold on. So store. So this and this is the fourth generation solution where we basically want to do an answering people interface API, a play on the word API. So, but instead of developers application programming interface, it's meant for regular people. We call it the People's API, CKAN with a policymaker people answering interface. The ambition is we want to have record level search. This is one of the goals of our clients in Texas. A lot of metadata, but not metadata keyed in and manually compiled by the data steward in the data publisher, but something that it infers for you on your behalf. It's again longitudinal data, but also it tries to create descriptive statistics on your behalf, so you can start, you can treat that as metadata. So you can then compute these key performance indicators, what Rufus often calls small data. And in this age of AI, maybe modernize it with a natural language interface. And all of this has to be fast, blazing fast. And what we want to say, happens at the speed of insight. So now we can actually do some demos. The first thing that it's demos because there are multiple components. So the first one is QSV. This is the thing that we built for the hedge fund. And basically what it is a super fast way of inferring metadata and wrangling data without having to deal with the slowness of a traditional Python-based solution. So, once again, we stood on the shoulder of a giant, one of the key contributors of the Rust language, Burnt Sushi, Andrew Gallant, was kind enough to permit us to create a rename fork from XSV, and we created QSV. You can find out more about it here, just quickly. So as part of the demo. So if one of the things that we wanted to solve with QSV is, if you played around with it, is it's a command line program, right? So you have to be comfortable with a command line, which right there is a small subset of regular users, and even smaller subset of data publishers, right? But it is fast, and what the good thing about this website, apart from getting information about QSV, is it gives you a configurator. So if you go here, say you want to try a command, this is all great work of one of our super interns, Muez. I don't know if he's here. So here you can basically do what you would normally do on a command line. Let me show you the flavor of it. So right here, I have a 1 million row sample of New York City data, right? Oops. So this is 1 million rows, and I can compile stats on it in 1.6 seconds. So I don't know. It didn't skip anything. It compiled standard deviation, quartiles, variance. I don't know if you're an expert in all this. Let me see stats. So if you ask it, it scanned those 1 million rows, and in less than 2 seconds, it compiled all this information about those 1 million rows, right? What the mode is, the cardinality, the uniqueness, the skewness of that column, the minimum, maximum, the data type, if it's a string, if it's an integer, and the min length, the max length, everything, and that's not guesses, unlike Metatables, which is a guess because Metatables only does the first 1,000 rows by default. This actually scans all 1 million rows, so it's bulletproof, guaranteed data inferences, right? So now that we have this information and metadata, we can then leverage it to do all kinds of things. But I don't want to get too far into that because that by itself is but rest assured, I invite you to play around with QSV and go to the configurator website and see how it can help you. The reason I wanted to talk about QSV first is because this is what we built DataPusher Plus on. You see a lot of memes here from the 80s and 90s when I grew up, so apologies. So here we rebuilt the DataPusher. We made it better, stronger, faster, like the Bionic Man, the $6 million man. And basically the ambition was, and again, like Joanna mentioned, we did do a monthly live on this last year, but it was more actionable errors, graceful error handling, it doesn't blow up, and it guarantees the data type inferences, and it has all the benefits of the speed of Xloader, but also some of the things that the original DataPusher attempted with Metatables. But this time around, it actually works because this time, through that detour that was thankfully funded by that hedge fund.
Joel, you went on mute.
Oh, yes. Joe, you're muted. Still muted.
Still muted.
Okay, let's wait until I told you today is like there is something going on. Many technical issues all day long. I don't know if you can, for example, Control D. Sometimes when I have technical problems with my microphone, I just press Control D and it works for me. You can try it out. Unless your microphone just crashed. I can see.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Please. Sorry. Let me try that again. Yeah, I need to get faster. So one new thing that we did add to DataPusher Plus is what we call the instant aggregations and queries. Now we actually, again, this is informed by our project with Texas, is we're inferring a lot of metadata. And also we are introducing recipes. So a quick thing on all these things. So instant aggregation and queries, let me just show you something quickly. This is something that we actually, thanks to the community of QSV, we found a way to do performant queries so we can basically do aggregations at the speed of insight, what we normally say. So for Open Data Day, we release 1.2.3, version 1.2.3. So we have about 176 releases of QSV over the past 4 years. And the main thing that another project we built on, another open source project we built on is polars. So if you're in the data science community, in the data engineering community, everybody's darling right now is polars. And basically it runs circles around pandas and NumPy because it's written in Rust and it's multi-threaded and does a lot of things. So just to give you a sense of how fast it is. So our test data set was an 18-column, 657 megabyte CSV file with 7.5 million rows almost, right? And we wanted to do this aggregation. And this is the CSV file. Before we thought it was fast enough. We were able to compute this SQL query against a CSV using QSV in 6 seconds. But with the changes we introduced like 2 weeks ago, we can compute that same aggregation in less than 0.14 seconds. So a blink of an eye, and even faster than a blink of an eye, almost, right? So, and just to give you an idea how fast that is, SQLite takes 2.9 seconds. PostgreSQL without an index takes 18 seconds. And even with an index, it takes 0.8 seconds. And that's before you imported the CSV into the database, right? So what we can do now with DataPusher Plus and what we are doing now with DataPusher Plus is making aggregations automatically based on the stats. When we were doing data type inferencing, we compiled all the stats I showed you. Now we can make decisions. Oh, I need to aggregate. I see that this column Borough has 5 values: Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, and I'll just do aggregations automatically. It won't even bother to ask you. It will just make the aggregations. And why do we do that? It's one of the ambitions, and for people who have used CKAN for a long time, is, before they have, there was the way to visualize data was using Recline.js, right? And the thing with the Recline, it had a graphical interface to build charts, right? But as we all know, charts require aggregated data. Doing charts on raw data doesn't work most of the time, as we all know, and we learned the hard way. And that's why we often don't even, and Recline.js has been retired, and data tables is what we're using now. But yeah, so that's why we can afford instant aggregations because it doesn't even bother. By the time I ask for you to do you want aggregations, I should have just done it anyway, right? And this is for a very large file, which normally is like an outlier, right? Typically, especially in the open data domain, people don't publish 700 megabyte files. Like this is a taxi data. Even New York City doesn't publish taxi data on Socrata because Socrata cannot handle it. They publish it on another system. So that's why we do that, the instant aggregation, metadata inferencing. So now we also do things like, if we see latitude, longitude, we will automatically, because we can do it, we have the min-max, we can then compute the spatial extent without even asking you. We just, oh, see lat long, or it's latitude, longitude, like certain words that are used predictably, we just compute the spatial extent and create the metadata. Or if we see, okay, this is a time series data set, and there's a date range field, we just go ahead and calculate the date range, doing the min and max. And some other things that we're doing now is, we're starting to take advantage of the extended data dictionary that Ian just merged, I believe. So then we can add instead of us looking at all these stats as a separate file, we want to include this in the data dictionary, so people can see what the values are of that data set. Okay. And the things that we're introducing, we're creating something called DataPusher plus Lite, which is run as a CKAN extension, because as some people who follow DataPusher know, the one component is being retired, CKAN service provider, so which DataPusher plus depends on. So yeah, we're creating a CKAN extension. Constantine is working on it. Another thing that we are creating is DataPusher plus AWS. That instead of using CKAN service provider, because we deploy on AWS by default, we will use Lambda to do the pushing. So it's far more tolerant. So it gets even better, even stronger, even faster. And DataPusher plus Lite is open source plus AWS. This is something that is still work in progress. We haven't decided on the license, but since it's built on on open source, the open source parts are open source. Okay, I know I'm running short on time, but I do have one more thing. This is the fourth generation stuff that I was talking about. So what we want to do, one of our mission statement is we want to build standards-based best-of-breed open source solutions to make your data useful, usable, and use. And we believe that for the useful and usable, that we have a solution for those two first pieces with DataPusher plus and QS3, powered by QS3. But what about actually using that data to gain actionable insight to drive evidence-based decisions? So now that we have the ability to preemptively compute things at the speed of insight quickly, instantly, perhaps maybe now we can start answering questions rather than just people searching for data sets, right? Because that's why we're compiling all this data. So this is what we built that we're announcing today. We're kind of like been announcing this somewhat on the QSV that we're doing, the QSV Pro. But what it is a cross-platform desktop data wrangling tool for the rest of us. So there's a lot of that information in that. And basically what it is OpenRefine plus Excel plus QSV plus CKAN plus recipes plus high-value curated data is what is in QSV Pro. So as you saw with my command line interface, this is something that normal people won't be comfortable with. And what we're doing with QSV Pro is we're shielding people from that interface. So you can have like a spreadsheet interface that everybody's familiar with. You don't need instructions. You already know how to use it when you open it. And it's fast. It's basically wraps the QSV engine. It has recipes. Those recipes are written. You can write them in Python if you want to use Python. But we actually recommend Luau, which is the domain-specific language. We again, another open source project we built on Lua, that Roblox, what they use for their Minecraft stuff, and Roblox it's much faster and doesn't have any external dependencies for doing basically ETL for regular people. You don't need to have a very expensive enterprise ETL license. You can just use it there. And another thing that we're building up is a high. Okay, I have all these horsepower, I have all this data, but I need to enrich my data. I need to get the per capita for this data feed I'm having. Oh, I need to geocode it. I need to enrich it with the latest census data. I need to normalize addresses. And typically these are specialized services and tools that require often specialized skills and often, familiarity with all these developer type services that, regular data stewards and data curators may not have access to. So that's what we have, and let me show you. Of course, all this is cataloged in CKAN. And let me show you our data catalog. So we have data that here where we have a lot of high value data from right now, starting with the census, starting with the Bureau of Labor Statistics that people can readily use. And we also integrated Apache Superset, another great open source project. Let's think of it as open source Tableau, and we pre-integrated it, and we actually created an extension, the CKAN extension for it, so people can quickly build visualizations like this, interactive, doing Apache Superset. Okay, let me quickly run through this. People can quickly go through that later. In this age of AI, even now we have some experiments with Describe GPT, is a natural language interface, so people can have that answering people interface, so they can ask questions, right? And you can find additional information in the QSV Pro website for that. And oops, now we can do Q&A. Sorry. Yeah, there's too much information. So if you want a deep dive, you can fill out a demo request if you want to deep dive into an industry components. But for now, for purposes of this demo, we can quickly jump to Q&A. I'm already over time. Sorry, Joanna.
That's fine. That's totally fine. You know that we are. No problem. Okay, let's open the floor for Q&A session. I can see there are several people raising their hands. I saw Paul is first, so let's go with Paul, then Masood, and then Aaron.
Cool. Hey, Joel, awesome stuff. I got tons of questions, but I'll try and, I think I'm just going to focus on something technical rather than the stuff around QSV Pro. With the things that you're doing with like aggregations, like what's the data model for that? Like, for example, with the way Polars works, you're able to create those aggregations so quickly because it's running off Apache Arrow. But then you're writing the results into additional tables in DataPusher Plus, or have an extension that stores some type of arrow-based file format, and then you can query that later. What's the sort of technicalities of how that will work?
Yeah, so a lot of the magic, and I that's why I call it magic, and I call this magical metadata, is I even don't know how, sometimes I don't believe how fast Polars is. Because I would give it something and it's doing like a multi-threaded memmap reading of the data. And you would think, oh, this is even faster than the disk.io. Why is it computing it so fast? So it's all doing that behind the scenes. So it's doing an arrow, but at the end of the day, what I have it spit out, Paul, is the aggregation as a simple CSV file. Okay, so the aggregation
is that as an additional data set or something with the.
And I can just make that an additional data set at their option. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Cool.
But nice. You mentioned Arrow, and that's why even in QSV, if you look at it, CSV is the central format. It's the lingua franca, right? But it does export to things that people may want, like Apache Arrow, Parquet, if they want it in those formats, if they want some more heavy lifting. We found a lot of people using QSV in several industries and life sciences, and yeah, it's gratifying that we see people using it in those domains.
Yeah. No, I'm mostly asking, like, because I'm just thinking of like, because a lot of that, all the stuff around aggregation sort of implies like optimizations around creating aggregations are based on newer column formats like Arrow. Everyone bases things off Arrow, and so I was just wondering about if you developed a sort of like a data backend for CKAN based on Arrow in addition or in parallel to the normal SQL.
No, not right now. We just stood on the shoulders of Polars.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joel. Awesome work.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, I think Masood, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Joel. Hats off. I think it was beyond impressive, and what you've done and how you tackle the issue and reduce the timing. I'm just blown away, to be honest with you. I think there's so many use cases for that. You mentioned that you're developing like a deployment on AWS. Have you considered, because once you kind of clean up the data and everything, have you considered to utilize the likes of, I don't know, AWS, Amazon Comprehend or things like that in order to do data anonymization for GDPR compliance, those kind of things, or is it on your roadmap? And also, how do you, in terms of the NLP that you've just mentioned, is it something that you're planning to provide as an add-on to the data? I mean, is it going to be something on the roadmap that it would be something that, I don't know, one-click deployment, and then you can start chatting with the data, etc., something like that?
Right.
Because I think once you standardize the data and clean it off, and you got all the metadata and everything, and you can do it at such speed and do the aggregation, then it opens just endless possibilities in so many different ways that just my brain is just racing like a million mile an hour.
Yeah, thanks, Masood. And you know what? We don't have all the answers, and that's why the way we are deploying it is we look at CKAN as a platform, as data infrastructure, right? You have use cases, you have tooling, you have access to services that you have access to that you can justify. We have a client right now, I cannot say which one, a corporate client, and they built a whole data analysis workbench built on CKAN. It's incorporated with Jupyter Notebooks, incorporated with Snowflake, and they have all these tooling already available pre-integrated into CKAN, because they have data analysts who are looking at the catalog and then doing analysis on it using the normal tooling that they're familiar with. But yeah, so our intent is so people can build things on it. So if you want to build things and use services like Amazon Comprehend, and go ahead and do it. And if you can open source a pattern that maybe people can reuse, that'd be better, right? As for natural language interface, one of the things we're doing right now, is because we can get the summary statistics of even large data sets in a few seconds, right? Is we use that as metadata. We're using that to train a model to basically generate a SQL query.
Right.
So when you ask a natural language question, it doesn't try to make up things and do hallucinations based on looking at the actual data. It's just looking at the summary statistics and the inferred schema based on the summary statistics. And then since it knows the shape of the data, right? This column is integer, or this date time, and it's name, latitude, longitude, and it knows certain column names and what they represent, right? If you ask a natural language question, it will spit out a SQL query, and that SQL query you can use the QSV SQL P command to do the quick answer, right? So that's the And that's still work in progress. Minaj, I think who is on the call, is working on that, what we're calling the ask command.
So
Yeah.
that would be, it would be safe to say that it would have some sort of a direct correlation with likes of vector databases, for instance. So you can literally use this as your data set, as your data source, and then create RAG applications, for instance, or RAG use cases in conjunction with vector databases.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, right now, I think from where we are with the current state of the art, what we're doing with the simple data store SQL queries to where we can, we don't even have to ingest the data, right? It's just a bare CSV, no index file. You can ask questions of it. Yeah. So, yeah. So, yeah. So, if we welcome people, that's why we love open source. So people can play and collaborate and build on each other's strengths. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, Aaron, your turn.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. Kudos, really impressive. Interested in your decision to use Apache Superset. Did you evaluate some other dashboard tools, and what were some of the criteria that you used to select that one?
Right. So the reason we use Superset was first and foremost Sammy, wanted to use it. It's open source. When we were doing deployments, when we were in OpenGov, 9 out of 10 times everybody wanted Tableau. But Tableau, even if they have the public Tableau version, that was still enterprise license, right? And not everybody can afford that, especially in smaller jurisdictions. So we said, why? We didn't want to do the same mistake that, I'm not going to name a vendor, that another vendor did, and they built their own Tableau, proprietary Tableau in their proprietary platform. So we said, use something that somebody else built. Again, stand on their shoulders, and that's why we chose Superset. But we have done experiments with Plotly as well. And that's another good, but the key thing is it needs to be open source. Yeah.
Okay. Paul.
Yeah, I was looking for the SuperSource extension. Can't see it. Is there a CKAN extension with Superset? Sorry, Superset.
Sammy, maybe you can answer that. Is it been released? Or?
Yeah, right now it's still in the development. So like once we finish the development, we'll be releasing open source.
Awesome. Great.
Okay, I can see Masud is raising his hand again. Please go ahead.
I just something really interests me that you said you're sticking with the open source and you're building kind of end-to-end solution on top of that. I have to, so much kudos to you and Sammy, because I think I mentor some founders and I keep telling them you don't need to build things from scratch, because everything is literally built and it's out there and it's available. All you need to understand is to look at it as a component into your engine. What function does it serve, and how it helps you to achieve a certain goal, if it facilitates a process or do things like that. And I think that there's a new trend of people creating end-to-end solutions, end-to-end business solutions based on existing software components in the open source community. And,
right.
and I salute you for that, because I think you paved the way for others. So I couldn't resist but to pay my respect to you guys.
Thank you. But it's not for altruistic reasons. We have our own pragmatic motivations to do that. I mean, first off, the risks. You don't take on the risk. You select a best of breed open source tool that has adopted, that's been vetted by the community, right? You don't take on the ownership of maintaining that code base, right? Because somebody else is maintaining that code base. And that's why we also open source most of our stuff, because we want, and we often tell this to our clients too. It's oftentimes we would get requirements from a client that say, "Oh, I don't want this data, this CKAN stuff. Can we have something else?" And then we would say, "Okay, we'll build. We have some. Ian built like data tables for Canada, and we said, hey, Ian, can we make that generalized?" And we did that for Boston. And then Boston, we said, okay, we'll help support developing that. And by contributing it back to the project, it's now maintained 8 years later. And it's been iterated on 8 years later. The same thing with Xloader. We built that for California Natural Resources Agency because they had super large data sets. Their volume of data was super large. And DataPusher was just crashing. And we said we have to build this with something else. And we commissioned Xloader, and we made it open source, not because, we didn't want to take on the risk of, okay, now from forever on, we have to maintain this code base, right? So, yeah.
And I think one thing I'm particularly very, very interested is to, and I would love to see sessions and for you guys and others who are doing open source in conjunction with corporate world, is how you articulate it legally in a legal contract with your client in terms of delivering what you deliver to your corporate client, which is proprietary, IP belongs to the client, etc. But yet you retain the licensing and the maintaining and the development of the open source edition of that. I think I can't find much information out there, and I think if there would be sessions that people who've done it before to discuss it, because it's got legal aspect and it should be meticulously addressed, not to it's like a minefield. You need to navigate it carefully.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
it paves the way for others also to understand, to have a better understanding it from the legal aspect of it, because there are lots of people who are in data and they can provide a service and they would love to do that, but they don't know how to legally structure it in conjunction with the potential clients.
Yeah, so the short one that we do is, we're a small shop, so when we do get an engagement, we're very upfront. We tell them all our work is open source, and right now, not because we have legal obligations to make it open source, because the license says so, right? So they kind of, okay, because you have to do it. So that's how we kind of get clients to adopt it. And we also tell them that, hey, you don't end up having a fork that you forever have to maintain, and us too, for us to maintain, because and right now, when Sammy and I started in when did we get together, Sammy? 2000. We were doing an open source implementation. We had to kind of sneak it in because the security guys won't allow it, the corporate IT guys won't allow it. But then we built Sony's corporate media website. They had Solaris servers and everything, and we did it for a fraction using Red Hat Linux. And and when they saw the result, they were just happy. The stakeholders were happy, and they said, oh, for the fraction of money, we got this functionality improved. But that was 2000, when open source was, when Ballmer was doing FUD, and cancer, blah blah blah, open source, risk. But now everything is open source. So the selling open source is not as hard as it used to be.
Okay. I can see Alex is raising his hand. Please go ahead.
Thank you. It's a quick one. Thanks a lot, Joel. I'm super happy to be here today. It was really interesting tool that you were presenting. I'm wondering, what are your future plans? Would you be releasing something new on the QSV side, or you have other ideas on tooling around CKAN and jobs of your potential clients? Basically, how do you see the future? What are next steps? What do you believe in?
Yeah, I'm excited to, iterating on contributing our problems to the CKAN 3 roadmap. The key thing I'm really excited about right now is DCAT 3 and how it will really make the quality of the metadata in CKAN catalog that much more richer and higher fidelity. And I think if CKAN becomes the reference implementation for implementing a DCAT 3 catalog, I think that will open up use cases and solutions to CKAN beyond publishing open data to actually becoming a true data management system.
That's great. I will write you an email on thoughts on DCAT because this is the area I want to spend several next months on. So let's combine our forces.
Yeah.
Great, guys. Feel free to ask some more questions here. I know we are running out of time, but people can just drop if they don't have time. I think we can have a few more minutes for questions. And I can see Maria had a question about AI. She would like to know in which direction is the integration with AI heading.
Integration with AI. Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, right now, even with QSV, you can provide your OpenAI key and try to ask questions with Describe GPT about how to describe the CSV file. That's an early experiment we did early last year. We're working on what we're calling that answering people interface. Again, we are experimenting with the open source models. So we don't need to, have an OpenAI key or whatever key that you need to use and outsource the thing to something else. Because we think we reduced the scope enough. So if we just provide the summary statistics and the metadata to a model, that it will have enough information to generate a SQL query. That's the direction we're going for. Because what it does is then you eliminate the whole problem of hallucinations, because at the end of the day, you're running a SQL query. So you have reproducibility of the answer. It's not just not making it up. So that's the direction we're heading with the ask command.
Thank you. I hope that answered Maria's question. There is, so Aaron just pasted a link. People can have a look. He's evaluating Superset right now for some open source project, and he welcomes comments and insights. The link is in the chat, so people can have a look.
And I also just pasted on the chat the link to the presentation. So should you want to use it, and I'll send it to you as well, Joanna.
Yes, I'll put it in the meeting notes document. Okay, Fergo, please go ahead.
Just to thank you, Joel, and it looks like you're doing some great work, and it's great to see so much progress in your tools. Look like they're really sophisticated and good, and we look forward to making some advantage of them. You mentioned a couple of times there how maybe some open source projects are more available and how you can stand on the shoulders of other projects. And it's clear that, there's been a huge amount of, tooling has been developed. Would you have any comment on, let's say, the view of the other, let's say from a customer point of view, the view of the market from the companies and the, I guess maybe even just from a stock market point of view, the concentration of the market capitalization in companies is within a handful of companies now these days. Increasingly, we're seeing customers just get free stuff, because they're public bodies, they do public programs. Most of these projects are, could you say the term kind of sexy, or if not sexy, then kind of, they're kind of corporate, kind of pro bono philanthropy, kind of doing good for society. And let's say your tooling requires, you know, effort and therefore, you know, time and therefore cost of living to develop. Do you see the bigger companies, you know, the top 3 who are donating lots of stuff and people for free to customers? Do you see that as alternatives that your customers are also experiencing, as offers that are there to contend, I guess, or compete with the types of infrastructure and tooling place with them?
Yeah, well, you know, one thing we've found, especially in the public sector, is the incentives are not aligned towards creating reusable work, because people do time and materials, right? And the incentive is to build more time, right? So we see all our engagements as product development. And we are very open about that with our clients. We tell them, okay, here's your use case. We will create an implementation primarily informed on your requirements, on your use case. But we always have a mind of productizing whatever we built for them, so we can take it to the next client, and to the next client, and to the next client. So the baseline gets higher and higher. And we're a small team. That's why, you know, it's not our tooling. It's, you know, our isn't that here's tooling. It's basically, you know, we benefit from the commons. So we try to be good citizens to contribute to all the open source projects we use. And that's not, again, just for altruistic purposes, because then it gets us some currency. It validates us as experts. It allows us to evaluate the solution and, you know, earn the trust of the different communities for those different open source tools, right? Yeah. So donating time, I mean, I guess nobody gets fired for hiring IBM. There's one truism that people say. But as we know, you know, oftentimes they have, like, you know, people fresh out of university, which is not necessarily bad. A lot of the stuff we have built is people built by our interns, which is not necessarily bad as well. It's just that, you know, a lot of times people just, you know, doing on-the-job training on the client's side. So,
and what I mean as well is that, Joel, is maybe some of our clients are getting, like, you know, unlimited amounts of resources from the big kind of companies who now also have catalogs. They're not open source catalogs, but to a customer, they don't know the difference between open source and free, really. You know, so to them, they're just getting kind of free resources, free hosting, free people's time, free suites of products all around the catalog that you could say could be comparable to the types of tooling that you're developing as well. So I'm just wondering, do you see any of those alternatives? You know, like, maybe we should mention vendors' names, but, you know, Amazon say they've got catalogs and tooling. You know, Azure, Microsoft say they've got catalogs and tooling. Google does as well. And they seem all to be chasing kind of public projects. So I see, rather than kind of tooling competitiveness, I see possible, and shaping the way tooling is shaping the kind of the landscape, which you've clearly said it does, and tooling has been advancing really significantly. I just wonder, like, simultaneously, has the kind of the vast concentration of resources that's been happening within those very, very big companies, is that just
and,
going
you
to...
know, one way we also do that, at least with the clients that we're successful in getting, is we tell them, you know, you don't want lock-in. You know, you're signing on to this client. Basically, your whole business model, your whole business process gets tied into that client's roadmap, right? And if that roadmap changes, or if they sell, or they do something else, or they pivot, your whole strategy goes away with that. So you want control of your tooling, and we often do a comparison to, you know, physical infrastructure. So, you know, you want you want your commons built on standards and open source. You know, you don't want a proprietary bridge that can only be serviced by one bridge vendor. You know, there are specs, there are standards that everybody observes, and then you have the ability to switch vendors. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Joel.
Great. I think we should wrap it up soon. So let's have 30 seconds more. If anybody has some questions or would like to share something, now it's your last chance, basically. And then also, let me just say, if somebody, because it's we have a few minutes for community announcements and sharings. If somebody wants to share something which is related to their own projects, you can also go ahead. And if not, we're going to let me share my screen. Great presentation, Joel. I think people are very excited. So yeah, great work.
Thank you. Sorry, I packed too much information. Yeah.
That's fine. Okay, let me share my screen so we can. I just don't want to have more technical troubles today, so I just want to share my screen. That's all. Please, let's see. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
There you are. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Really great. Okay, so I don't see any more questions. Joe sent his email. I'll include it also in the meeting notes document. Yes, some people dropped, I can see, but I don't see any questions. If I've missed a question, please let me know. Okay, so before we actually wrap it up, I just want to bring people's attention, again, to our CKAN Monthly, CKAN Demo Days initiative, pardon. So maybe, I don't know if people are aware, but we had this CKAN Demo Days initiative, which basically started because of the Open Data Day. Like, we just decided we can celebrate the Open Data Day. There is information on our blog. People can just go to the blog at CKAN.org, and you'll find 2 articles there, very explanatory, in my opinion. And you can see how you can actually take part in this initiative. In a nutshell, I've put that on screen. As you know, this year's Open Data Day centered around the how open data is key in solving some of our SDG goals. And that was following CKAN's endorsement as a digital public good. So in sync with this, we decided to run CKAN Demo Days initiative, and our goal basically is to gather all kinds of stories, as I said at the beginning, of people who are working with CKAN or just part of CKAN community. So what you need to do is basically just record a video and then send it to me or Kate or Stephen and tag us on social media so we can reshare. And we can add it also to a YouTube playlist, which will be on the official CKAN Association account. There are some, we've included some video ideas, but it can be anything. It can be literally anything that you'd like to share related to CKAN and open data. Okay, if you want to have a talk at CKAN Monthly Live, you can fill out a form. It's included in the meeting notes document that you already have, or you can write directly to me. I will be happy to host you. If you want to suggest a topic, there is a file, suggestions for topics and speakers. You can find it in the meeting notes document, and you can add your suggestion there. Also, you can tag me so I can see. Of course, subscribe to our newsletter. There is a link in the meeting notes document. You can find it all there. If you need some help or if you want to get involved with the project, there are plenty of ways you can do that. You can chat with us on Gitter. You can join the dev meetings, which happen every Tuesday and Thursday. You can check Stack Overflow, GitHub discussions. All the links are available on our website, ckan.org/community. And of course, you can follow us on social media. We have Twitter, LinkedIn, Twitter. Yeah, I had some troubles with Twitter today, but usually it works great. We have LinkedIn, YouTube. You can check our blog. And that's it. Follow us there. We share some interesting stuff. Thank you guys for your participation and patience. There are still people who didn't drop, so thank you. And see you next month, I guess.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Joel.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Joel.